On the southern side of Mount Oread, in a pocket of the University of Kansas campus, lies a special place. Nestled behind Blake Hall and at the corner of Sunflower Road and Sunnyside Avenue, decades of effort from generations of faculty and students has led to a remnant prairie restoration effort. What can this beautiful spot teach us about caring for native biodiversity? And how can we ensure a place like this remains open, cared for, and appreciated in the years to come? To learn more about this, I spoke with two KU professors who know the most about the Prairie Acre Restoration Project.
I'm Bob Hagen. I teach field courses for the Environmental Studies program and have been involved with Prairie Acre really since 2015, when I began taking students there to measure and study the vegetation in association with the restoration efforts that were beginning at that time. So Prairie Acre is a unique spot in the central part of KU campus. It's the last remaining original tallgrass prairie. I tell students that Prairie Acre did not exist 200 years ago because it was part of tallgrass prairie that stretched throughout the county, occupying more than 95% of the land. But what happened, of course, was that the city grew around it. And then in the 1930s, a group of faculty women recognized that it was the last remaining part of the original landscape that covered the campus. They persuaded the university to set this aside as a preserve, as a historical remembrance of what once occupied the entire campus. But the remarkable thing about Prairie Acre is that despite the neglect and the fact that it has a lot of problems with non-native plants that have begun to establish and in some cases take over areas, with in addition woody plants, which are not a normal part of prairies, it's still got a surprising diversity of native plants. I think one of the most remarkable plants, an individual that I think of as Lonesome George, is a compass plant that in 2016, after the prairie was burned for the first time in a long time, shot up with a 6-foot flowering stalk. And what was remarkable about Lonesome George and the compass plant in general is that that species hadn't appeared on any of the species lists recorded for it. So it had gone unnoticed, probably persisting for 80 years, if not longer, and then just decided, because conditions were right, to flower. But those little hidden secrets, prairie is a subtle landscape. It's not obviously beautiful, especially in small pieces, but once you learn to see them, they are extraordinary.
I'm Kelly Kindscher. I work here at the Kansas Biological Survey. I teach and do research, teach an environmental studies program, and kind of related to all this project, one of the things that I've been involved in for years is the Prairie Acre. Prairie Acre is located really on core campus, and it's a very small remnant. It's actually quite a bit less than an acre, but it was an acre at the time in the 20s and 30s when it was recognized as the last piece of prairie left on core campus. When I came here to KU to grad school, I learned about it and thought it was cool. And there were just a few prairie species on it, and a couple faculty I worked with, Phil Wells and Ken Armitage, both pointed out how really it was not much for remnant left. There's only a few prairie species, and really educational to me, realizing that even when you protect something, if it's not managed, it can decrease in quality or size and no longer be maybe the rich, beautiful prairie it was before. And then years later, more recently, teaching the capstone class, the senior class, we focused on doing a restoration project. And for that, we did everything from collect local seed, to planting plants out there, to taking care of them, just having a massive effort to do some restoration work, and we've burned it and managed it since, and other classes have made use of it. Students and others visiting can appreciate it, and there's an effort by several of us, but Bob Hagen's kind of been leading the way to really talk about having an outdoor classroom where you can take classes and go see the prairie. So whether it's an art class or a biology class or environmental studies class, it's something on campus that people can go visit. And yet still, it needs more work, and it needs management, and it gets a little management, but there's really no one responsible for it. And so it's kind of this conundrum: if we're going to have this piece of prairie on campus, some entity at the university needs to be responsible for it, manage it, caretake it. Much like buildings get maintenance, much like we have initiatives to do things on campus, there needs to be some initiative to take care of this historical and wonderful remnant.
Students enjoy having outdoor spaces to relax in, but what is the importance of having a prairie instead of trees or mowed grass?
All these different sites, like that, offer something special and a special connection to nature. So in some ways, I think everybody loves being in trees and being in a forest and seeing big trees, and that offers a lot of solace and contemplative nature. But I think also there's equal value, and perhaps even more value, of being in a prairie or something that's original, to think about that this is something that's been here for thousands of years, whereas the trees in Marvin Grove are planted. It's a created landscape, or this is a wild landscape. There's a little bit of wildness on campus. I wouldn't say it's wilderness, but it's a little space of wildness. Also, there's something special about a full sun exposure, and thinking about, oh my gosh, when spring comes, wouldn't it be nice to go some early spring day and sit out on the prairie and feel that warmth of the sun after winter's passed, and maybe a few things coming up and a couple of wildflowers, and I think you can just delight in that experience. I do think the ecology of the prairie is very important, and one thing we're not going to get back is bison, right? So if you look at what the prairie offers today, it's a much reduced size, and to bring back all of the prairie and its biodiversity, we can't do that at this site. And yet, it's a little gem of a parcel, and so it'd be a shame not to bring back what we could. And what we really can bring back is the plants, the wildflowers, and kind of the vista from there. Probably needs to be, a committee formed, and there needs to be somewhere a little bit of resources provided. I think, I keep thinking about a coordinator, but some sort of entity, but there should be some funding found to have a coordinator for it, quarter time, half time, someone that maybe works with grounds or works with the various educational efforts or programs across campus. It just seems that there needs to be a coming together to figure out how to do that.
You've seen a real change, I think, in the last couple of decades, in an awareness of the public and of students of the importance of native landscapes. And now the task is to capture that interest and focus and translate it into action. And more important, action that can be sustained from year to year.
The Prairie Acre is the only glimpse left into what the campus looked like as a native prairie. And with university support, this gem of ecological history could be maintained for generations to come.